Hey guys, welcome back to LVCC. I'm Liam again.
I'm Nick.
And today we're going to go over a little bit of history of my car and what happened, how we got to where we're at, what we want to do with it, and we'll even get into a little bit of work that we're doing on it. We're going to relocate the battery to the trunk of the car for various reasons. All right, so let's get started. All right, guys, where do I want to start? This is my 1995 240SX. Looks a little roasted. I know it looks a little rough. So let's talk about how we got here. So back in about February of 2019, my friend had this car sitting around. He wasn't doing nothing with it. I had already had another 240 at some point in my life, another S14. And I was just really wanting to get back in it, really want to do something crazy. So I went ahead and messaged him about this, and we agreed on a price, slowly made some payments for it. At the time, it was actually a really good looking shell. Maybe Nick can edit in some pictures right here that I have for it. But it was a really nice car. All it was missing was the engine. So it had the transmission, it had everything else. It was a rolling car other than the engine. So I thought, hey, this is a really good chance to swap in another Nissan engine that I have sitting in my garage. At the time, I had a 280ZX, which I had turbo swapped, and I just really like that engine. No, it's not the best. No, it's not the coolest, but I did have it sitting around, and it was a decent enough platform with enough aftermarket that I thought I could do something with it. So, did some digging, and eventually, we swapped in an L28 ET from a 280ZX turbo car. We can go into more detail of this later. I'm sorry the lighting is kind of bad, but basically we were having a little bit of trouble one day. We got the car running, we got it driving a little bit. Long story short, we got a fuel leak because the rail got bent. The brackets for the fuel rail got bent up, so therefore it was spraying fuel on the side of the motor. And if you're not familiar on this motor, the intake manifold is directly above the exhaust manifold. So of course, once that dripped down, it lit the gas right on fire and flame out the hood, flame out my shifter, flame around the sides of the car. Not much I could do at that point. I just stopped it, hopped out, tried to pat it out. Couldn't really get anywhere with that, unfortunately. Here's another clip of them putting it out. So that day was crummy. And then the car sat in my driveway and basically got code enforcement called on me a couple times. So I shoved it in my garage and it just kind of sat for the last 5-6 months. So now that I've got this space to work on it, now that I've got a little bit of money saved up, we can go ahead and get some stuff knocked out. Current plan is to try and get it back to running. Just get like a dashboard, a seat, maybe carpet. We're not going to go crazy on trying to rebuild it or nothing. I mean, the shell is still good from the fire, but to try and get back a lot of stock interior parts and whatnot, as most 240 owners know, is ridiculously overpriced. So for now, we just want to get it running, get it driving really good, and then eventually, hopefully, find a nice shell that I can swap this motor and trans into. Just have that be a nice cruiser car, just drive it around for fun, and then this, maybe someday, you know, do something crazy, some sort of V8 swap, or we're not sure yet, but we'll see what happens. All right, guys, so if you can't tell by what's on the table here, we're gonna be relocating the battery to the trunk today. So we've got various battery terminals, we have ends to crimp onto the cables, and something else that I'd like to try. These are battery cable bulkheads. I found these on just any of the speed part websites, Jeg Summit Racing, one of those. But basically this allows you to mount this little bulkhead into the firewall or a sheet of metal or something. And now, since this section is insulated, you can put a battery cable on both sides and it doesn't actually contact the metal, so you're not sending power to a certain piece of metal or ground or what have you. So I'd like to put these on the firewall of the car. That way we can run a ground cable from this straight to the engine block, and then from the power one, we can run wires straight to the starter right next to it, and then straight out to the alternator in front of it. It'll simplify a lot of stuff in the engine bay. Let's go ahead and try and get in the trunk. Last time I tried to use the trunk latch, the cable wasn't working, so we're gonna try and get in there, and let's get moving.
What's up?
Alright guys, so one of the first things you want to do when you're relocating your battery is find a suitable place for it. So I'm looking around in my trunk here. Lucky for me, a lot of people do this to 240s and stuff like that, S14s. They all pretty much agree that this shelf over here is a really good spot for it. So I've got my battery box here, 10-15 bucks at most part stores. I'm gonna take this. We're actually gonna mount it right there with a few spare nuts and bolts I have. We're actually gonna use a riv nut tool. I haven't actually used them before. I bought one just for this car. So we're gonna drill a couple holes, put our nut inserts into the car, bolt down our box, then we can set our battery in place and start running the cables. We actually found some factory holes, threaded holes right here. Turns out we can use 3 of them, so I'm really only going to put one more hole in here, use the riv nut tool, and we'll bolt it down, and we're pretty much done with mounting it. Alright guys, so we went ahead and marked our holes by putting a pick from the bottom of the car. Marked our holes on the box, we marked 3 of them out. We're going to go ahead and bolt it into the car, and then we're going to drill straight through the box and the car for the 4th one, and then we'll take the box back out, put the nut insert there, and then we can put all 4 bolts in, and we're ready to start running cables. So what I got here is a riv nut tool. I think I got off of Summit. Summit Racing is like 40, 50 bucks. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember, to be honest with you. So it pretty much looks like a rivet gun, but it puts in threaded inserts. So these basically act like rivets, but they have threads inside of them, so that you can basically put a nut in any piece of metal or wood, or whatever it'll stick into well enough. So we're gonna go ahead and drill the correct size hole for this thread insert, and we're gonna pop a nut in there. There she goes. And we take our riv nut tool, thread the insert onto it as tight as we can, and squeeze it just like a rivet gun. And with any luck, we now have a threaded hole right where it's supposed to be. Alright guys, so we got the box mounted, battery box, and the battery is sitting in there. We'll figure out a hold down situation later. It's not super crucial right now just to run the cables. So we're gonna go ahead and run the negative cable first. So I've got one end already crimped on here. Gonna hook that up to here, have it run out the front of the box like that, and out through the car up to the firewall. Alright guys, so we went ahead and laid out our cable in the car, routed it through everything we wanted to get it through, kind of held it up to where I want this bulkhead to go on my firewall, and cut it to length real quick. So now we're going to crimp one of these ends on here. I've got a nice crimp tool here that you can either put in a vise or use a hammer. You can use a hammer. So I'm just gonna strip back a little bit of this insulation, get this on the end, hammer it down. Obviously not the preferred way to do this, but I can't seem to find a knife or a razor blade, so I'm making do. Just like that. So this will go right on the end. Perfect. All right, we got the heat shrink on there. I'm just putting the cable end on. It's very simple. You just put it through the crimper tool. Make sure it's lined up in that V. Get as straight as you can. And as barbaric as this looks, it's how you do it. That is a crimped end that's not gonna come off. All right, most people would use a lighter on this. We're classy, we got a heat gun, so we're just gonna shrink this up real quick. There you go, heat shrinked. Cable is done, goes from the battery up to the firewall. Good to go.
And we will be doing exactly the same thing with the positive terminal as well.
All right, guys, that pretty much wraps up our battery relocation. Actually went a lot smoother than I thought it would. We didn't get to necessarily mount those bulkheads I was talking about because we're still missing one. I still have to weld a plate into the firewall, but you get the gist of it. Yeah, we're pretty much done here. Obviously, there's a lot more work to be done. Thanks for watching LVCC. Like, comment, subscribe, you know, whatever you want. Everything helps, and we appreciate you guys watching. Thanks.